Okay, so we're recording. This is a live session, Tuesday, 7:51 p.m., just about an hour after the daily close on Bitcoin. All right, it's September 8th. So I want to talk about a couple of things. Okay, first things first, of course, most of you who have been with us for the last several days watching Bitcoin, trading Bitcoin, you know that we've come down into a very key area after even dropping price, and we're really just ranging. This is all just garbage ass chop. Okay, all the resolution from this will either happen, to the upside or to the downside. Obviously, right? I mean, I feel like I'm stating the obvious, but the reason I'm stating that is because what you need to establish in here is some form of basic bias. Okay, because here's the thing. If you're trying to catch the bottom right here and price pushes up and then it comes back again and then stops you out below these wicks, you're going to be unhappy. Or say you short up here or you short right here and then you get stopped out by this wick, again, you're unhappy, right? So whether you're short or long, you're going to have to establish a couple things. Number one, you need to understand that we are in a range. Nothing has been determined in this range, other than the fact that we came down heavily and we've tested this 10K area of support. Personally, I am still short. I have a short, which is kind of like a hedge. My short stop is like somewhere around 12,000, way the heck up here. The reason I have it that high is because I put in more of my capital, less leverage, because I have all these altcoin positions that I'm using that I still have in the market. Like if you go over here, I still have my link position. I still have my dot position, and dot and some of the other ones are kind of in profit, but the other ones are not, right? So the reason why we created this hedge, which is right here in Bitcoin leverage short, is because we get to take advantage of a couple things. Number one, if you are like me and you are long altcoins, you have to have a hedge on the other side, meaning in case the market breaks down, you do not want to suffer more with altcoins breaking down. The way you can establish your hedges with Bitcoin being short is if the market does break down, at least you make some money on the way down. That's effectively the point of the hedge, right? Is to reduce risk, reduce capital losses on your hedge, or rather on your main position with your hedge. So this is why we're short, okay? Now, from the technical standpoint, all right, we were talking about this earlier in the Bitcoin chat about things associated with TA, things going on, if TA is useful, all that stuff, right? And I'm going to go over that in a second because there was kind of a chatter, back and forth between me and Ezekiel and other people, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? If you don't think that TA is working specifically, that's okay. Now, I think the query, or rather the conundrum to this is that does the TA on BTC matter right now? Well, I think it matters much less than you would have thought earlier, which is as we look at the DXY, which is again, the US dollar basket, right? We've seen it continuously tick up over the last few days, okay? If you look right here, right, you could clearly see it moving up, okay? In that same time span, you see BTC moving down. In that same time span, you also see, things like the NASDAQ futures, right, moving down. Okay, so what does that tell us? Well, at present moment, your life is actually made easier by simply focusing on a couple things. Number one, watching this DXY chart. As long as the DXY keeps pushing up, BTC will continuously keep breaking down. Same thing with the NASDAQ, futures chart, which is just NQ. As long as the NASDAQ futures keep pushing up, that means that, more than likely it's possible that the DXY is possibly pushing down. So the correlation technically is best found in DXY, NASDAQ, or, even the S&P 500 futures, okay, right here. Meaning BTC moves positively, meaning with the S&P 500 futures or the NASDAQ futures, and it moves against the DXY, meaning they are inversely correlated. Okay, so those are really the only things you need to pay attention to. And, technically, Ezekiel's right that TA on Bitcoin right now doesn't matter, in a sense that, well, if Bitcoin is going to break down, that means this S&P 500 futures are going to break down. That means the dollar is going to start breaking up. I totally agree. But here's a more important part. Things are correlated to some degree, but you do not know the percentage of which things are correlated at. So for example, if the DXY, ticks up, let's just say 2 points, well, how much, dollar loss or dollar, sell off does that mean for BTC? Well, you ain't gonna know, right? Unless you look at the support resistance levels. And these levels I've clearly laid out to you guys for the last day and a half, right? We have the June monthly open, as well as this key diagonal trend line, the dotted trend line, right here around 94.50. That's our first big key SR level. So it's possible that price bounces here. Below that, if it breaks that, right, it's possible that we get to the 9100 area, which is the 200 moving average. Remember, the moving averages that are most utilized are typically, 25 moving average, 50, 128, even the 100, and then the 200. The reason why these moving averages are important is because most people look at these moving averages, from the standpoint of like which algorithms or which bots or what has actually really been used historically. Sometimes it's the simple reason that, hey, we've always done it like this, so we're just going to follow those moving averages. There's really no basis to it. It's very possible that a moving average like the 173 moving average or something random like that gets hit perfectly. But that's not the point, right? 200 moving averages get hit more often and find support for price more often than say 137, So that's why we pay attention to key moving averages. So that's, your second level of support. Your third level of support is right there around 88.80, which is the yearly VWAP. Okay, and then finally down here, which is around $8,200, which I think also happens to be a pivot. Let me see here. Pretty sure it's a pivot. Oh, I think it's a pivot on a weekly basis, maybe. Yeah, so $8,200 or so, right? That's a pivot on a weekly basis. Okay, so there are numerous reasons why TA, from the standpoint of looking at support levels down for Bitcoin, if and when it does break down, you should be paying attention to these levels. You can start taking profit on these levels. You can start adding to your long positions on these levels. Any number of things you can do, but this is where TA helps you, okay? Now, let's move back to the macro picture, which is, what exactly is going on and driving up the dollar, and what's going on with BTC and what's going on with the stock market. All right, if you actually watch my video here, the one I did with Rishabh, he's the guy who came from a private equity background. This is the video, it's in the live equities updates. Make sure y'all check it out. I posted this yesterday at 10:30 a.m. It's a solid video that entails, for the most part, exactly how we're looking at the market from the standpoint of all of this FOMO, all this euphoria, all this froth that's in the market. And all that comes from the idea of call option buying that's happening. Okay, again, the details of this are within this video, so I'll let you guys go watch that. But point is, there's a whole lot of call options in the market, okay? And there's, an unwind that's happening. Meaning, as you can see, percentage breakdowns across the board, even after, we're down maybe 10, 15% in Apple, 30% in Tesla, Microsoft's down 10, 15%. Even after that, there's still a whole lot of call options that are remaining, as you can see, okay? So this means that implicitly, there are a whole lot of people that need to be squeezed out of the market, okay? Here's what happens when there are heavy call option buying versus the underlying stock that's being bought, right? So you guys know from the standpoint of crypto that, when you're say buying options, right? Or let's just say you're buying a long position, you more often than not have to have BTC in your account, right? Well, This is not really the case for things like Apple or Tesla or Bank of America or anything. You don't actually have to own the stock, meaning you don't have to have Bitcoin to trade Bitcoin, or you don't have to have Bitcoin to long or short Bitcoin. So what happens is many people start speculating that, hey, I think Apple is going to go to, it's at 112 today. I think Apple is going to go to 125 3 weeks from now. And I think Nikola, which is trading at $50 right now, I think it's going to go to 75 3 weeks from now. What happens is there's a whole lot of short dated call options that get bought, but no one is really buying the underlying stock right here. All they're really doing is speculating. It's like, me betting on the outcome of, I don't know, some other event that's happening. I have no stake in it, right? I'm not in the game. I'm not in the event. I have nothing, at stake rather than me just simply betting and gambling. So when the market starts selling off, you just really need a domino effect, okay? You sell a little bit right at the top and you keep the pressure on in the market. So for example, let's look at Apple stock, right? So Apple stock, had this big parabolic rally, and then right at the top, you saw some big selling activity, right? A big red candle. And then after that, all you really have to do is keep continuing the selling, or, people who were helping, the price kind of being guided up, like the real institutions who are pushing the price up like this, they just have to pull their bids, and they then start selling right here and start taking profit. And then what happens? Well, all these people right here that you see speculating on the call options, right? They are now put under pressure, because remember, call options start dropping drastically as the market, starts going down like this. And what happens is the unwind, which is when the stock itself goes down, and then you have the call options selling, right? You have two factors at play that are selling into the market, which is the actual stock, and then the call options themselves. When they sell, someone on the other side in the market has to go out and sell physical stock, right? So what you're really seeing is an impact of why the call options being so heavily, being purchased, are now about to feel the pain on the way down. Okay, so the unwind is happening in the market. And by the way, these call options are probably not going to fully be unwound, probably until the September expiry. So till the end of September, for the most part, I would probably figure the market is continuously going to sell off. If anything, it's not going to pick back up. So this is why I'm looking at the market when it comes to BTC. I'm looking at the market as more than likely this thing is going to start breaking down. And I have my levels below, but I'm not confident enough to say that, all right, guys, I'm definitely short. I'm selling everything. From here, we're going to go to 8,000, 7,000 below. I'm not really confident saying that, because I don't really know what happens after the unwind. Do we come down here and then start picking back up around October or November? Or do we just kind of come down here and then, trade in a range until election time, right? I don't really know, but I'm confident enough to say that I'm going to hedge a short. I don't care what the noise is in here. I'm going to hold my short, probably a stop around 12,000. If you want to lower your stop, you could keep it right here around 11,500. And I'm going to probably hold this thing and make the bulls feel the pressure on the way down, at least to some of these levels that I spoke about: 9,450, 9,100, $8,800, and 8,200. Okay, because I really do think that the unwind, not only in the stock market, is coming apart, but I think it's happening in the crypto market, right? Sometimes you don't really have to pay a whole lot of attention to the TA per se, but you have to look in this area. And, if you look back in retrospect, you could say that, all right, guys, there was a bunch of BS happening in this area, random DeFi coins going up 1,000%, Wi-Fi and all these things that went up from $30 to 30,000, just like crazy stuff happening, right? That's not really normal, okay? You might think that, just because you're used to crypto, like, okay, this is great, I get to make all this money and I see 50, 100% gains a day, but that's not really normal, okay? And so when the abnormalities start piling up right at a key high and euphoria is at its peak, well, then you get the sell-off. Now, of course, I was definitely one of the people who was thinking from here we're going to break up. But once we start to break down further and further, I was less confident, right? Unfortunately, by the time this candle happened, well, I was kind of stuck in my altcoin positions. Okay, so I'm still looking to unwind and close out some of my altcoin positions, but I'm not going to close them now. I'm already sitting at a loss. So I'm thinking of it in terms of this. If I get a bounce back from BTC up here and we start rejecting over here, like I've said before, I'm going to start closing out my altcoin positions because most of them will probably be in profit or in lesser losses. And then I'm going to start shorting Bitcoin. And if I'm going to short, I'm probably going to short heavy. Okay. But right now my short is just as a hedge. It's a decent sized short, right? But it's not the best risk to reward short because if I'm shorting right here, right, at least my stop is over here. And at best, the best stop that I could have is way the heck up here, which is basically where my stop is. Okay. So I'm looking at this market right now and thinking, well, I think there's more breakdown to happen. I think, bulls have had enough fun on this whole rally up. Fasol's actually thinking that there's probably maybe a 40 to 50% decline total that might come out of tech stocks. So for example, if Apple is right now down 18%, let's just say 30 to 40%, should be around $80 to $90. I think that's what he's saying. Okay. I don't know if that's possible, but again, we've had a lot of fun on the way up. Pulling back 30, 40, 50% should not really surprise anyone. You can't just keep going up forever. Okay. So this is where my analysis for Bitcoin comes from is I feel comfortable shorting. I feel confident in saying that, more than likely we're probably going to break down, but I'm not going to close out my altcoin positions because let's just say I'm wrong, right? Well, I want to keep my long exposure to the upside because if BTC starts pushing up from here, well, altcoins are going to rip, right? And that means I'm going to make back my losses or even make a ton of money on the way up. Okay, so this is why I'm kind of hedged on both sides. Now, this is for the short term. Now, for the medium to longer term, this is kind of what I'm thinking. Okay, and so where we have to kind of dig into the 4 hour a little bit. All right, so there's a couple ways to look at this. I've drawn some 5-wave counts. Okay, so I've told you guys that this was possibly 1, 2, maybe this was a 3. I don't know. Maybe this was a 4. Maybe this is a 5. Right? This does give us a completed 5-wave structure. Okay. Now within this 5-wave, it's also possible that this is the larger wave 1. We're still working on a wave 2 right here. Okay. And then we might have our wave 3 stretching down further. That's also possible. But the point is right now, whether it's Elliott wave counts, whether it's, looking at this support just basically on, the technical basis of hitting support multiple times, being under the weekly open, none of this is inspiring for a long position. Okay. Even, like I said, from the ES standpoint, let me check this out, right? From the ES standpoint, you could kind of look at this way. Here's, the previous base that we had earlier in the day, right? This was this morning. We broke it, got rejected and sold off right into after hours. And again, we're coming back to that same area and rejecting it very perfectly. So if the ES keeps breaking down, I expect Bitcoin to start selling off into the night. So for those of you who are up in the Asia and Euro time zone, well, you want to be paying attention very carefully because personally, I don't really think that from here we're going to bounce and just take a massive rip of a candle to the upside. If we do, I'd be really, really surprised. It'd be like, one of the very few times BTC does that. But I'm looking at this as, well, we've hit the 128 moving average multiple times. The DXY is kind of relentlessly climbing. It does not give a shit about, equities or Bitcoin, gold, anything. It just keeps going up, as it should, because, we had from March all the way down to this low, we had, good 5-6 month sell-off. So of course, we're going to push up a little bit, right? There's got to be some mean reversion to the upside. But the one thing that kind of worries me is that, we're actually breaking out of this trend line right here, and we're breaking outside of this descending broadening wedge. The way you measure these wedges is, you can take the broadest point right there, Whoops, right there. You just put that right on top where we broke out, and our target for the DXY should be about 95.44. Okay, that's a good 2 points higher from where we are right now. And over the last 5 days, you can imagine, DXY ticked up from low 91 to the high of 93. Bitcoin was brought down by $2,000 plus. So imagine, again, if we push up another 2 points or so, what that does for Bitcoin prices. Again, it's not necessary that 2 points in the DXY equals $2,000 in BTC. Again, that's all dependent on the respective support and resistance levels of Bitcoin, but you guys know what to look out for below, right? Just in case the DXY keeps pushing up, just in case, the S&P 500 pushes down overnight, you should be expecting these levels below, okay? So the point is, rest of September, I don't see any reason why we can't keep selling off a little bit more until some of this, FOMO options activity gets cleared up by the end of the month. And that would probably mean, same thing for Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's going to probably sell off even more as the stock market sells off and the DXY ticks higher. Okay. Are there any questions? Do you feel like I answered any thoughts and concerns y'all had? Do you think that there could be a short squeeze to trap more people thinking a continuation of bull market than drop? I don't know. I mean, if there's a short squeeze that's to happen to the upside, that would mean like the DXY needs to regress, at least a good point. And I don't know if that's going to happen. It's just on a tear. Like you can look at this, this thing looks like it's aiming for the moon right now. It's just not stopping. So as long as the DXY still holds strength, I feel much less confident in Bitcoin, in gold, and US equities. That's just how it is. Okay. And the dollar reigns king. And so point is, if I do think, we're going to tick higher, well, I need to see that reflected in the DXY. I need to start seeing, the S&P 500 futures pushing higher, maybe Apple and Microsoft, some of these positions right here that are heavy call option oriented, I need to see these going up. Because these are the biggest positions that were the most speculative, and these are the largest companies. So when large caps like Apple and Tesla and Microsoft and Facebook, when big companies like this start selling off, well, they bring entire indexes down with it, right? It's the same thing like when, Bitcoin goes down, most of the altcoins go down too. It's because it's such a massive, impact on the market, right? So can you elaborate on Raoul Pal's statement of a drop of 50% BTC? Okay. So that was regarding my Twitter post. Let me see here. Did I retweet that? I don't think I retweeted it. Okay, so let's go to his post. Okay, so what I was talking about over here, right? Let me retweet this. So what Raoul, I think, was talking about over here, and this was in relation to him being irresponsibly long on BTC, is that first of all, you have to separate yourself from Raoul because he's probably got, a lot more money, a lot more experience than all of us combined, okay? He does not utilize things like BitMEX or FTX or any of that. I think he's mostly just buying spot Bitcoin, okay? I've watched his videos before, and he said that, he's bought at 6,000 and he's bought at 10,000. He's bought at 3,000. He's bought at 12,000. So he's all over the place when it comes to buying Bitcoin. And so for him, his average is just fine. Okay, it's probably like, maybe 7,000 or 9,000 or whatever it is. Okay, but the point is he can expect a 50% drawdown and he'd be okay with that. He's not saying that, well, I think Bitcoin's going to drop 50%. He's just saying that I am prepared for it. Just like I've prepared you guys with all the analysis that I posted, that be very wary of this support. I don't think it's going to hold. Especially I don't think it's going to hold, especially if DXY keeps pushing up, and then this kind of garbage keeps happening in the S&P 500 futures market, or they keep selling off. So what he's really saying is, he will be just fine if Bitcoin drops to 5,000 in the next 2 weeks. Question is, will you? And if you're not prepared for that, well, how can you prepare today? Because it hasn't happened yet. Well, that's why I told you we're hedging short, right? He's saying that I look at my full allocation versus liquid assets and not my house. So he's saying that, okay, let's just say his net worth is $1 million, right? Aside from his house being his asset, if he has 500,000 in the Forex markets, 100,000 in gold, 200,000 in equities, he's considering that even if Bitcoin drops 50%, his life is not going to drastically change because he has other assets that he has cash that he has, of course, an income stream, which is also great. So point is, he's just preparing you that, okay, well, just because he's uber long on Bitcoin doesn't mean that, he can't weather a storm of Bitcoin dropping 30, 40, 50%. But most other people cannot, and so that's the point. Let me see. I think I answered that. Any other questions? Do you guys understand, exactly where we are in terms of the market and, my explanations of what I've talked about over and over again? I know sometimes I may repeat myself, but I feel like the more and more I repeat myself, more of you will understand it a little bit better, or you may have missed something yesterday that you might catch today, Okay. All right. Okay, well, there's not really a whole lot else to cover. Again, we are preparing and looking out for more downside ahead. I am short. I think I made that clear. I'm not going to sell out my altcoins, but from a medium to long-term perspective, I think it's possible, right? Where, I definitely see a world where, okay, this was a mini distribution range right here. Maybe we sell off, pull back, all the way to somewhere around 8,000. And maybe, by October, November, we start pushing back up towards, 11,000 or 12,000 again, maybe even, higher prices, right? And again, so what I'm really doing is I'm preparing myself that in my altcoin positions, okay, I'm fully prepared for a drawdown as BTC goes down to 8,200. And in this area, I'm going to see if Bitcoin kind of holds up. If it goes further, I'm just going to have to, figure out a way to hold on to my altcoin positions, either keep, holding a short, or I'll have to short, my other altcoins too, which is fine with me. If I have to do it, I'll have to do it. But that's how I'm going to be preparing for, potential further dip down. Yeah, so when would one buy the dip? Well, here's the case, right? The buying the dip case is already laid out for you. Here, here are the levels that we should be looking out for in this box. As BTC comes to these levels, you can effectively start scaling into your positions, whether you're buying XRP, whether you're buying Ethereum, whether you're buying Link, Rune, anything, okay? But as Bitcoin comes down to these levels, you should be prepared to know exactly where key support levels are for key altcoins, okay? Or simply, honestly, to make your life easier, you can just look at BTC when it comes to these levels right here, and wherever, your XRP or Link or whatever, wherever they are, as Bitcoin approaches these levels, you can pull the trigger to buy, okay? That's one way to go about it. Now, another way to go about it is let Bitcoin come to an area, let it sort of form a base, whether it's 3 days, 5 days, 2 weeks, let it form a base. And once that base is formed, then we can, expand on the opportunity of buying the dip on altcoins, okay? I'm gonna be right there, probably waiting to buy the dip on altcoins. But the reason I haven't touched altcoins since way the heck up here is because once this happened, I didn't see any reason to buy the dip on altcoins, because I'm looking at this as, okay, well, we were in a range right here, oops, in a range right there. We exited that range impulsively. This ain't good, right? We have to find key support, key buyers, and that can only happen when the equity market stabilizes, when the dollar stabilizes or starts bleeding, and when Bitcoin catches, some key support, which might be in the 9,000 territory, might be in the 8,000 territory. I don't really know when, but there will be a time where we will understand that there's, key support that Bitcoin has hit. It's holding the support, and now might be the time to buy the dip. But it's not the time right now, at least not for me. Cool. Let me see here. How do you explain that BTC made a lower low, but smaller cap coins like DOT didn't on the 4-hour? Yeah, I think it's because probably, okay, so this again goes back to risk, right? We call it beta, okay? Beta is nothing but, your risk relative to the index, your risk relative to the, the main asset, if you will. So for example, BTC is of course, one of many assets in crypto, but it is a lesser beta asset than say something like YFI or Link or Ethereum. Why? Because it has less volatile movements, it has a bigger market cap, right? And it has more liquidity in it. So why did Link and DOT and all these other altcoins start breaking down much further and accelerated much harder before BTC? Well, because these are higher beta, higher risk assets. There's no other way to put it. Link is a higher risk asset than Bitcoin. Link is a higher risk asset than Ethereum. Ethereum is a higher risk asset than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a higher risk asset than Apple. It's things like that. And so while Apple may sell off, let's just say 10, 12%, well, there's a reason why BTC drops, from this key high to where we are right now, almost 19, 20%. Or even, in this big drop that happened, Bitcoin dropped 50, 60%, because again, it's a higher risk asset. So to answer your question, why did Link not put in a lower low? Well, that's because Link had already sold off so aggressively because people are looking at Link as an asset that they need to get rid of fast, okay? So right now, there may not be as many sellers in the market. I'll tell you one thing though, if Bitcoin goes down to 9,000 or 8,000, more than likely Link is making, a lower low as per this one, okay? It just so happens to be that right now, Link is not dropping aggressively. I think it's just waiting for Bitcoin to do something. And if Bitcoin drops, well then Link will probably take out this low, okay? The levels to look out for Link, I told you before, right around this $9.50 range, even way the heck over here around $8.40. Those would be the levels to look out for, okay? DOT on the 4-hour time frame, if you inverse chart, it looks like a cup and handle. Yeah, that's probably not good because inverse cup and handles are bearish. So let's see. Oh, fuck. Okay, there we go. Sorry for cursing. Okay, so here's what Will is talking about. Yeah, so this is wow, this is like the most perfect cup and handle I've ever seen. So this is your cup. This is your handle developing, right? Well, when your cup and handle breaks, it's going to break to the upside, meaning lower prices. Again, this is an inverse chart, right? So that means this thing is probably going to break down, lower and lower. I'm still profitable in DOT because I got in around $2.97, $3. So like from here and where we are right now, I'm still up. What am I up? Like 40% or something. Gosh, I was up like 120, 130%. But how times change, right? That's the thing about crypto, guys. Don't ever take it for granted because before you know it, your position is down 10, 20, 50%, literally in 3 days. So yeah, I do agree that this is a inverse cup and handle, and chances are it's, if Bitcoin breaks down, this thing is going to break down too. Cool. So you guys know, my short-term picture, my medium and long-term picture, you know areas of support to look out for, which is on this chart. You know exactly why the selling activity is happening in the market due to all this degenerate gambling that's happening in the call option space. You know, unfortunately, most of this, for the most part, I think there's a lot of Robinhood traders. There's a lot of speculators on the sidelines who are kind of gambling on this market. And you know, guys, this happens in cycles over and over again. Most people get taught their lesson. We've all learned our lesson in crypto. We know that what goes up parabolic comes down, you know, like a you know, rocket crash landing on Earth, right? And we've seen that time and time again in crypto, where whatever favorite altcoin or crypto that you believe in, you know, if it's up 100, 200% or 500% or 10x or whatever, it could easily come down, you know, 60, 70, 90% by, you know, a few months or by the end of the year. That's just how the market is. It's very speculative. It's very sort of, you know, high risk, and you should expect that kind of stuff to happen. You know, fortunately and unfortunately, it does happen quite a bit. So yeah, that's what we're waiting on, guys. You know, let's just see the market play itself out. Again, I'm expecting selling happening into the night. So for those of you who are in Asia or you're staying up, you know, in Europe or whatever, keep an eye on that. That's it. Y'all take care. Cheers, and talk to you tomorrow.